Maybe that's why I'm sick. Maybe I just need to work it out of me.
You think working out will help?
No, it'll make it worse. But.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll make it worse as well. Hi, my name is Chris, and I am an addict alcoholic.
Hi, Chris. My name's Kim, and I am married to an addict alcoholic.
Hi, Kim. So I was sick last week.
Yep, and you don't have the COVID.
Yep. You were naysaying that I had the COVID the whole time, which was correct.
That you didn't have it?
Yeah.
Oh, we kind of wished you did, though. That way you had like a mild version of it.
Yeah.
And now I'm sick.
Now you're sick.
But my COVID results came back a lot quicker. Within the day.
Which is that, so they did the up the nose thing you said?
No, but because I'm a healthcare worker, they can order a different one. They don't have to send to the mail. They send it to the hospital.
Oh, okay.
So I got it 10 hours later, which
geez.
is pretty good. They told me 24 hours.
I only had to wait a week.
Yeah. But
I'm just a dumb civilian.
Which, if you would have told them you lived with a healthcare provider, they would have done the quicker one. Because I read their policy, but that's probably the last thing on your mind when you're feeling like crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, my results came back, but I still feel miserable. But I'm here for you guys. Yeah.
I've been holding on to something just for you. You ready?
Okay.
So I was testing out, because I was on somebody else's podcast today, and I was trying to find the chords for this new thing that I have on the computer. And so I'm going through all these boxes, and boom, I open up a box, and there are 2 empty shooters in there.
Oh.
Yeah, that sucked. Like, I felt like I didn't have the euphoric recall, but what I did have was I remember when I would hide drinking, I would if I drank a certain amount and I could tell that I wasn't drunk enough, that it was only going to last like a little while, then I would start to panic and like look for other things, or like think of how I could get more, so that drunk would last longer. And that feeling, so that I saw 2 empty shooters, and that feeling of like, oh fuck, I'm out. Like that rush came right back. And I was like about to start rustling through more boxes, and I was just like, fuck, dude. Like, that's a thing that I did not expect. And I mean, we've talked about it in the sense that like addiction is not just using itself. A lot of addicts, it's the search or the hunt, as they say, to find that stuff can be a big part of it too. And it's an aspect of the addiction that I didn't think, I didn't expect that to feel that intense.
Yeah.
That was probably
What if you would have found something?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That's scary shit.
That is.
Well, my first thought was, so the first thing was that rush of like, we have to find something, like that sense, which is so hard to describe. Like, I don't know. It's really weird, but you know what it's kind of like is looking through stuff and finding an old photo and then being like, oh, I wonder if there's more old photos. And so you start opening up boxes to see if there's more of that same thing, or if you'll be surprised by something. Like that's what that felt like. But the other thing that I thought of was, I thought that you had gone through all the boxes and gotten rid of everything. Because remember,
I went through the one trunk that you used to hide things in. I didn't know
that was it.
I didn't know there was other places. You made it seem like that one time we had the conversation, you said it was just the trunk.
Yeah, but when I was in treatment, remember, I was like, go through everything. Because...
Well,
not that
sorry, when you were in treatment, I was busy with other things too. I had 2 sick kids, COVID, taking care of kids, working.
It's true.
So I guess I thought, where else would you, where'd you find these? What box?
In one of the cameras that we're using, one of those old boxes.
So is there anything else in any of those boxes?
Not, I mean, the only other box that I looked in was, I did just look in my camera boxes. I didn't go rooting through all of the other boxes, luckily. But I mean, that's another reason why, like, it sucks. Like, I hate, like, I'm going to have to edit all of this tonight. And I hate that feeling of like, God, deadline thing when it comes to podcasts. But it's another reason why I have to keep doing this, because I'm not doing AA. I'm not doing any other, not doing Zoom meetups or anything. So this is a space that like still keeps me accountable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sorry.
Some dog hairs on there.
I don't know. That's crazy.
I know. I didn't think that was going to happen, but that's, I mean,
I guess it's just a reminder of how bad your addiction was.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And how quickly it can change. Cause like, I think just last week I was saying like, I don't know. I don't know what that feeling feels like anymore. And then to have that happen yesterday.
Yeah.
Sure. You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right.
I just got uncomfortable.
Okay. All right. Thoughts, comments?
That's scary. Now I feel like I have to dig through that whole closet, and I don't like that.
That's what, and
it made me nervous.
I wanted to tell you, because a big thing that would happen in treatment is that somebody would say they knew where they had liquor.
I mean, when you were in the hospital, you told me where you still had some shooters. Yeah, I got rid of those, but I mean, it's not like you didn't tell me not to go through those boxes. But now I feel like I have to dig in that hole. Yeah.
And that's what I thought you had gone through all of that stuff. So I was, completely took me by surprise.
Yeah.
But so like I was saying, a big thing was that people would say that they knew where stuff was and that they were going to throw it away when they got out.
Oh.
Which puts you in so much danger. You have to, and I don't think we've talked about that on here. Like, don't trust yourself.
I think
if you're in recovery and you genuinely want to get rid of all of that stuff, you gotta have somebody with you.
Yeah. I think thankfully, if you hit anything, it's empty.
Yeah. And that's, I was very much trash panda in that regard, where like most of the stuff that was in there was all, like empty stuff that I would be putting like, so that it wouldn't show up in a garbage can or something.
Yeah.
So there's at least
that's
that.
like when the cops showed up, I couldn't find your alcohol anywhere. I dug through I went outside and had to dig through the garbage in front of the officers. So I was like waist deep digging into the garbage trying to find something, and I couldn't find anything. Yeah, I don't even know where I put that stuff. Yeah, I think it was I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know I used to hide stuff in the back of the car. Yeah, I looked there. Underneath the thing. It wasn't there. But yeah. I may have found it and threw it away, and I just don't remember, just because, Yeah. But yeah, I just don't do it yourself, and don't be like dramatic about it and like, this is something that I have to conquer. Like, you're not Superman. The odds are just too great that you're going to just use it. Yeah. Or that you're going to say, I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to hide it to like test myself. I would hear people say that too. Why would you do that? Remember Nurse Jackie? Yeah. Is that what the show was called? Where she was addicted to pain pills? She had that one pill that she put in that like wedding ring box. Okay. And she said that it was a reminder for like being a year sober or something like that. And she ended up popping it. I know. Why would you even risk it? Exactly. So, and I know that's a TV show, but that goes, it's very granted, they're TV shows. They take things from real life, reality, and put it into TV shows. Yeah. I mean, yeah, addiction is addiction, man. Yeah. Like, you're not proving anything to anyone. Yeah. No, if you told somebody that you have a bottle of liquor and you're leaving it there just to prove how strong you are, they would tell you how dumb that is. Yeah. I wouldn't tell someone they're dumb for that, but I'd be like, that's probably not the best. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. If somebody who cares about you, they're going to say, what? No, don't do that at all. Is it hard for you to drive by the liquor stores you used to purchase from?
I am usually, I'll call somebody, or I will I'll be doing something with, I know it's not the safest thing, but like something with my phone, like looking for an episode or a song that I want to hear. Like every time now, it's like muscle memory. Every time I am at the stop, that traffic light by Perkins, then I start distracting myself.
Yeah.
And I like don't even look left, because that's, I mean, I'm sorry if that's confusing for people, but the liquor store that I would go to the most often was really close to my work, and so I drive by it on my way home every day.
You drive by it twice a day.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's like walking by your dealer twice a day.
Yeah, and they wouldn't give a fuck.
No.
If I went in there, they would just let it happen.
I don't think dealers really care either.
I don't think so either. Oh, okay. I think our caller is ready.
Hello.
Hey.
Am I on?
You are on, yes.
Are you anonymous?
Hello. Am I on?
Well, like, are you going to be anonymous on this?
Oh, it doesn't have to be. No, not at all. I'm not even certain what the format is. But no, this is Derick Johnson.
Hi, Derick. My name is Chris, and
yes,
I'm an addict alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you claim yourself to be, sir?
I suppose an addict. It's people don't like to use that term when it comes to I guess like marijuana and like occasional pain medication, but that, I mean, it's still a substance abuse issue, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
Well, it's like people can be addicted to, I know people don't like to say you can't be addicted to marijuana, but you absolutely can.
Yeah.
It's not so
course,
much like a physical, it's that mental, that desire and that need. You know what I'm saying? That's enough to be physical. Oops.
definitely, because I was able to quit smoking cigarettes pretty much no problem, but quitting smoking weed is like essentially out of the question for me.
Ah, I see. So, and I mean, our mutual friend, I mean, we've met each other a handful of times, but
Oh yes,
our buddy James,
yeah.
had spoke very highly of you.
Oh, I appreciate that a lot. I actually got to see James for the first time in weeks tonight. I ran into him at Acme. That was really nice.
Oh, really? Very sweet.
Yeah, he's doing well. Everyone's actually looking really good. I'm really happy to see it. I saw, do you know Ira Ford?
Yeah.
Saw Ira Ford for the first time since like March, and that's one of my closest friends in the local comedy scene.
Really?
And good Lord, he looks incredible. He's lost, like, he doesn't seem like he even knows it, but he's lost a bunch of weight, and he's looking a lot happier and healthier. And so, like, it's nice to see people like coming out on the other side of all this, like with a little bit of a positive attitude. I mean, we're obviously not out of the woods yet, but it's just nice to see people doing well and taking care of themselves and shit.
It's those little victories, man. They make a big difference.
Exactly.
Now, I'd love to dive a little bit into your history, if that's okay.
Of course.
So tell me your first time using, good sir.
First time I ever did anything that wasn't like, just like fucking junk food and shit was I drank a beer when I was like I think 13 with my friends, because I was like, oh yeah man, we'll be fucking cool if we drink a beer, and I was like, this tastes like shit, I don't feel cool at all, let's play Nintendo, this is dumb. And so I had always, like, for some reason just gravitated towards stoner types and like stoner comedy and shit like that. And I always thought, like, as a little kid, I was like, weed's cool, man. That's what makes you cool. All the cool guys smoke weed. And like, they were always the funny characters in movies and shit. There's always the guy cracking wise was the dude with a joint in his hand.
Gosh,
like,
that's so true. Now that you say that, that's true.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that. Weed was, nobody ever associated like a horrible person with weed.
Yeah.
No, not really. There was never really like poster children for weed that were just like shitbox people, you know? It was always like, I mean, I grew up like emulating a stoner watching Scooby-Doo, for Christ's sake. Like Shaggy like was obviously a stoner, you know? And it was a whole lot of like, it was presented as like, yeah, this is the drug that's a joke. Like it's like, it doesn't matter if you do this, you know? And so when I was like younger, I was like always interested in comedy and always wanted to be the funny guy. And I was like, weed makes you the funny guy. Like,
wow.
If I've learned anything from TV and movies, it's that weed makes you the funny guy. And so as soon as it became an opportunity for me to try marijuana, I was like full speed ahead. I was like, fuck yes, you have weed and I can smoke it. Like, I'm so ready. And my friend, when I was in 8th grade, he had found out that his parents smoked weed. And because like he was just kind of a little asshole and he would dig through their stuff, you know, when they weren't at home.
Okay.
And he found a jar of some just like shitty old people weed. And he found like a dugout in there just full of, you know, fucking Sturgis Bike Week weed. And I was like, yeah, dude, let's smoke that. And we didn't know how a dugout or like a oney worked or anything. So he was like, we'll roll it up in like printer paper and smoke it like a joint. And so I told him, all right, like let's do that, I guess. Sure. And the day comes and we were texting each other because like we didn't have Facebook back then and all that. So we're text messaging each other in the morning before school. And I'm like, I'm going to get Doritos at the gas station and I'm going to get like Mountain Dew. It was like the stereotypical like movie stoner list. It was like essentially the list that he rattles off in Half Baked, like get some Funyuns and water, you know, and like, so we got all that. And then 0 hour hits. I go home and he's like, all right, come over at like 7. My parents are going out for the night. And I got scared shitless. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a drug user if I do this. And I decided not to. I was like, I don't feel good, man. And he was pretty much like, you're a pussy. Just like smoked weed by himself. And then told me it was like the best thing that ever happened to him, pretty much. He was like, you missed out on a shitload. I had more fun than I've ever had. And I was like, well, fuck. And then about a week later, a girl who I had like a sort of a thing for was like, do you want to come over? Some people are going to smoke weed tonight. I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I went and smoked weed with him. And absolutely nothing happened. I smoked probably just like shitty swag with all these just like dirtbag kids from Champlain, and nothing happened. And I was like, is this weed? Is this being high? This is fucking stupid. And everybody just got sleepy. Like this dude who we were with just like fell asleep on his couch, and we were at his house, and we were sitting in his unfinished basement. And like he fell asleep, and the other people who had invited me there were like, well, we're gonna leave because we're bored. And I had gotten a ride from them, but they didn't even ask me if I wanted a ride. They just left. And so I was like, so I just get to watch this sleepy guy all night, dude. Weed fucking sucks. And then for about like a month, I kept doing that. Like every week, like I'd go smoke with these guys like 2 or 3 times a week, and nothing would fucking happen, but they'd get sleepy and I wouldn't get high. And I was like, this is dumb. And so
that's really interesting.
Yeah. And I didn't smoke again for like 2 years because I was like, weed doesn't work. I'm one of those guys where weed just doesn't work. Right. And come like being 16 or something like that, I'm hanging out with this guy who's like from Ham Lake. He was the only person I ever hung out with who had like parents that had their shit together. And so I was like, oh, he's gonna get nice house weed, so this is gonna be crazy. And so he picked up weed from some random ass kid in Ham Lake, and it looked like it was made in a goddamn laboratory. I was like, this isn't weed. Where's the sticks? Like, what is this? And so we smoked that, and I got higher than I think I've ever been in my life. You know, the stereotypical story of like, oh yeah, that doesn't work, so I smoke way too much. And then it's like, oh, that works way too well. And then I became sleepy guy on the couch watching Spinal Tap in my friend's basement. And I've just been that guy ever since, just the sleepy guy on the couch watching Spinal Tap. I'm like, yeah, this is what's up. And in between, I experimented with other things. I think when I was like 16 was when I tried this stuff called K2. If you guys are familiar with that.
Very familiar. That's really bad.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Yeah, really bad.
Yeah,
I've
so-
seen kids that have smoked it who become very psychotic, and sometimes it doesn't reverse, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah, I have a friend who has like essentially what would be considered like acid flashbacks, but because of K2, and because this stuff wasn't ever regulated by
No.
the FDA or anything, they didn't know what was being put into it. It was just mystery, liquid, or
Yeah.
rather,
Yeah.
mystery substance. But he has something where I'm not a fucking doctor. I don't know shit about the human body or neuropathy or anything like that. But he'll trigger hallucinogenic flashbacks, and it's not every time, and he only did DMT, I think, a handful of times in high school. So he's 26 now, and still to this day, occasionally, if he has an intense enough orgasm, it will make him have a hallucinogenic flashback similar to the effects that K2 caused him.
Wow. That's bananas.
And it lasts for about like 2 minutes or less, he says.
That makes sense because it could be that the dopamine reaches a level that activates that part because, euphoric recall is what that is. And, if your brain remembers that enough vividly, then
So I suppose when you're having that orgasm, that dopamine increases and it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's sort of it's like I guess you could consider it almost like a hot shot of sorts, where it's like you're awakening something dormant.
Jeez.
And it creates this like intense sensation. And the experience I had with K2 though was very, very fucked up. It was like I was 16 or 17. I honestly can't remember. I think I was 17, and we were me and someone who I actually do a podcast with, Derick Johnson, were hanging out. He doesn't smoke really, but at the time we both smoked cigarettes, and we were hanging out outside of a gas station, just like flagging down people, trying to get people to buy us cigarettes. And we were in Ramsey, so nobody wanted to, because it was all like, just bougie white people who were like, no, because we had like mohawks and shit. We were like little punk rock jerks. And so they're like, yeah, get a job, basically. And this one dude showed up, and he was like, oh shit. And I was about to say his name, but I probably shouldn't. But this guy pulls up that he knows from school, and he's like, he's 18. He can buy us cigarettes. And I was like, well, fuck yeah, man. Okay, now I remember we were 16 because we were looking for an 18-year-old. That's right. So he went in, got us some smokes, and we were like, what are you up to, man? And he's like, oh, I was just about to go smoke a bowl, go for a cruise. And I was like, hell yeah, man, let's do that shit. And then my buddy was like, yeah, I'll come with, whatever. So we parked in a parking lot of like a park in Ramsey, just like some municipal parking lot. And he pulled out like a big ass like orange bowl with all this crazy filigree on it, a neato like professional stoner looking bowl. And I was like, we're about to get high, boys. And then he pulled out 2 different bags, and I was like, oh, he's got 2 different kinds of weed. Like this guy's like on another level. And he was like looking at either bag, like one in either hand, just like kind of looking back and forth and like just like staring at them meticulously, and the bags looked like identical. And then he sort of like shrugged, took the bag in his right hand, put it under the seat, and then opened the bag in his left hand and started packing the bowl. And so I didn't find out until later he was trying to figure out which one was K2 and which one was weed.
Oh wow.
And so he ended up packing the bowl with K2. And I smoked a whole bowl of K2 with this guy, and I was holding that shit in like forever. Because back then I was like broke as shit, and I'm like, you hold in weed for as long as you can't breathe anymore, because you need to get as high as you can for as cheap as you can. And the longer you hold in K2, the more fucking intense the experience would be, because the longer you're just holding those mystery chemicals inside your fucking lungs. Jesus. So I smoked a whole bowl with this guy, and while we were smoking, he was doing fucking, I can never forget this because it's like such a weird, like it was the strangest like shift in emotion I've ever had, of like being like ecstatic and happy and having a great time to immediately feeling the most morbid dread I've ever felt in my entire life. And it was he had a children's book, like a Dick and Jane book, in his car for whatever reason. And he was reading the Dick and Jane book as death clock characters, like from the show Metalocalypse. And I was just like thinking I was getting stoned, so I sort of had that psychosomatic like giggly thing going on and stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, this is great. Just sitting around giggling with my buddy. And then suddenly my vision like zoomed out. And like I'm not going to get too verbose because I hate when people start talking about like, this is what my trip was like, man, because it's always like, I've tripped and that sounds like a bunch of bullshit. But so, you know, things started to kind of zoom out. Like I had sort of like the Hitchcock effect where, you know, the vertigo effect, everything's like feeling like it's drifting away from me, but the background is like imploding forward. And I was like, something's wrong. Like immediately was like, this is not right. And then my vision just started to like blacken, like almost like when you're pressing on your eyeballs and you can feel like that pressure and kind of see the pressure build up. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
Yeah, like when you rub your eyes in the morning and you can sort of see the light of the pressure, I guess is the best way I could describe it. So I saw that and felt like a pressure on like the front of my fucking brain. And then I heard my friend in the front seat go, he's going to throw up, get him out of the car. And that's like the last thing that I can recall like from like the real world. And then I just got blasted off the fucking K2 land. And They pulled me out of the back of the car, and as soon as they pulled me out of the car, according to them, I had like a massive seizure, but I don't recall having a seizure. I remember seeing like essentially this is going to be a very deep cut, so I'll be very happy if you know what I'm talking about. Did you ever play Pokemon Gold or Silver on the Game Boy Color?
I did not.
There's for any listener or anyone else who might know what the hell I'm talking about, there's a mini game in Pokemon Gold and Silver where there's like little tiles, like a puzzle tiles, and you're trying to solve a puzzle that's like a fossil. And you can make different shapes with the puzzle pieces that sort of look like it would be a complete puzzle, but it's not the actual image you're supposed to be making. And for whatever reason, my brain snapped to that. And like all I was seeing was like a shape that I had accidentally created in the puzzle mini game of Pokemon. But I didn't see like, you know, the border of the Game Boy or anything. Like my vision was as if I was directly in front of those slates, just staring at them. And all that was happening was sort of like a pulsation. Like I just felt and heard like a pulse, like a heartbeat kind of deal. And then you know, just had a stereotypical trip beyond that. Like I said, I don't want to get too verbose about it because it's always like, really? That's what happened? Sure.
It's giving me anxiety just hearing about all this. I hate that feeling.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I've heard of other people on K2 that have had seizures. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's definitely it's no joke, man. And I woke up in the back of an ambulance, and they were like frantic as fuck when they woke me up, and they were like, you know, checking my eyes and shit and doing all types of shit. And like they pulled a tube like out of my mouth when I was waking up, and like so they had like put a tube down my throat to like, I don't know if it was like to reinflate my lungs. I don't think it was that, but like they put a tube down my throat for whatever reason.
Probably to help you breathe.
That's like a type of intubation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then they said that they had to defibrillate me because my heart seized. So that was like a catalyst to everyone in high school then starting to call me Zombie. That was my nickname past that, because they were like, this is the guy that literally died. Because the paramedics, when they showed up, because my friends were trying to take care of me in the parking lot, because I guess I was throwing up and I had like multiple seizures and shit. And someone driving by was like, he needs an ambulance. And they were like, no, it's fine. And they were like, fuck you, we're calling an ambulance and the police. And so the guy who had picked us up fucking dipped after that. And my friend who had been with me the whole day stayed there, gave like a fake description of the guy to the police, because they basically thought that someone fucking drugged me. They thought we got picked up by someone and they drugged me. And like that was essentially like the story that we told. And then the story that I told my parents was that like, because they thought that I was allergic to weed. I had somehow convinced my parents that I was allergic to marijuana so that I would never get in trouble for possibly like smelling like it or something. I'd be like, oh, my friends were smoking it, you know? So what I told them was someone was smoking marijuana in a car with me, and I had a major allergic reaction to it, to the smoke. And that's what they thought the whole time. And that's how I got away with like not getting a massive scolding from my parents of like, you overdosed on street chemicals. I guess I don't know where to decrescendo from that point, because it is such like an intense thing to say like, yeah, so the paramedics came out of the ambulance and just told my friend, yeah, he's dead.
Well, okay. This is a lot of things.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
So, okay, first thing is I've never heard someone so cheerfully describe a near-death experience. Like, you sound so enjoyable. Like, not in the sense that, like, you think it's a funny thing, but, like, we've talked about it on here before, which is, like, trauma bonding. So, like, and this is something that would happen in treatment all the time. We would be laughing about these insane things that would happen. And it's like, what else can you do? The fact that you're alive is almost like comical. Like it's insane that you pull through. It's
Buster Keaton in my mind. That's always what I equate it to is Buster Keaton.
So for starters, I'm glad you're still here.
Thank you.
And people can have hyperemesis, so they vomit a lot when they smoke pot. Some people have like some type of intolerance to marijuana.
That's what I've heard. So it's an aversion. Well, and we know that that's not what you're...
Well, no. I know that K2 is so bad. So bad. But when you talked about that telling your parents that you had an allergic reaction, people listening might be like, what the heck? But they're legit people who will... And when I say hyperemesis, it means you vomit significant amounts if you smoke pot.
Yeah.
And get very sick. Yeah.
It's like
you're getting like an allergic reaction in your lungs.
Yep. Well, I mean, you're streamlining something that you have an aversion to. I've heard a lot of arguments that people aren't allergic to weed, which I find hard to believe because you can be allergic to anything.
You can.
Exactly. It's just a friggin' plant. Like, of course you can be allergic to it.
Just ask Andy Matfield.
Does he have an allergy to everything?
Does he just have like a list of allergies?
He's allergic to everything.
Because he's told me like some of them. Because like he makes great food. I've had dinner at his place before, and like he always cooks like with like very specific spices and stuff because of allergies. Yep. And his food always tastes so good because of that. Whatever he's using, I'm like, dude, I want to be allergic to what you're allergic to. This shit slaps. This is great.
Okay, so you have this experience. And do you remember, like, did your stance on smoking change after that event? Or did you just say no to K2?
So I don't think I ever softened my stance on marijuana. If anything, I think that emboldened me to be like, this has never and will never happen to me with marijuana. I'm like,
interesting. Okay.
And like, so that I feel like was sort of like a pseudo safety net that I had created mentally to sort of be like, no, you never need to quit marijuana because that never happened to you on marijuana. And it was sort of almost like for lack of a better term, like correlation versus causation kind of thing, where it's like, no, this is good because nothing bad has happened to you on it. So that means it's good. And so I just sort of like never would listen to people being like, maybe you should like try being sober. I'd just be like, maybe shut up. How about that? And I always sort of approached it with like, cause I said I was always inspired by funny stoners. So I sort of always approached it with like a comedic aspect where it's like, nah, weed's a joke. It's the joke drug, like I said earlier. So it's not a big deal. But anytime anyone would talk about synthetic anything, though, I was always like, man, you're better off just sitting staring at a wall,
Okay. Now, all that being said, I do wonder, because you were saying that, people had told you maybe give being sober a shot, and something that is said, and I'm sure you've heard this before when it comes to addiction, is this thing hasn't happened yet. So it's not that it can't happen. It's just the concept that the more that you use, the greater your chances are of having something negative happen. Because I mean, if you get way too high and drive, there's all kinds of bad things. It's the same as driving drunk or driving buzzed. Like you can, and anytime that somebody makes an excuse to say, well, I've never had a bad experience driving high, like those same people will also say that they've like seen shadows jump, or like something has messed with you while you're driving that kind of made you go, whoa, that was weird. And it's like that, that little thing is a danger in itself. So it takes
Oh, sorry to take the reins, but it takes a millisecond for everything to change, you know, and whether it be because you looked at your phone for a second or because you were thinking about something stupid because you were high, you could easily fucking crash, and like even worse than just kill yourself, you could kill someone else and their family and friends lose them because of your selfish decision.
Yeah.
And the same goes for driving under any intoxicant whatsoever. And yeah, I've never been one of those people that's like, yeah, driving on weed's not a problem, because you hear all the fucking hack jokes that are like, you wait for the stop sign to turn green, and it's like, shut the fuck up, dude. You're you're just facilitating people. Like on paper, there are people taking drugs, driving cars. Do I sound like a total herb right now? Yeah, but that's the reality.
Yeah, and I've had to do that stuff too, where you have to say objectively. You do have to create like objective truths when it comes to sobriety. So I mean, I completely, you herb it up, man.
Yeah, I love that term. I hate that I seem like I'm a massive flag waver for weed, and I am in many ways. But am I going to tell someone all your problems are going to get fixed if you smoke weed? Absolutely not, because here I am with a litany of problems, and I smoke weed every day. And
Sure.
it's not anything caused by or made easier by weed either. It's just something that I've made a part of my life. And I think unfortunately for a lot of people who are addicted to any substance, whether be cigarettes, alcohol, any sort of drug, you sort of will make excuses for yourself that you'll then say out loud to others to sort of affirm it, and you'll make it sort of a global statement of, no, everyone can do this sort of thing, or everyone deals with this, or I know people who have dealt with it. And you'll kind of use these things as a defense mechanism to disarm some of the more logical arguments behind what it is that you're doing. And I know that I still catch myself doing that even like today. It's like I will catch myself being like, I know how I feel in my heart of hearts about drug abuse and about substance abuse and about like self-empowerment through ways that are going to be healthy. And I don't mean self-empowerment in the way of like supremacy, but just in the way of like knowing your worth as a human being.
I don't think there was any malice or ill intent in what you were saying. I think you jumped to white power.
Yeah, that's I guess to get back on track, what I was saying, it's just I know that a lot of people, and myself included, make a lot of excuses for things that they don't think are an issue, and it may not be an issue yet, but down the line it could end up really fucking your life up, man. I could just be driving with a bag of weed and get pulled over and have a cop on a bad day be like, I'm gonna arrest you and fucking charge you to the full extent of the law because you were driving around with drugs and shit. And like, that's a fear that I've had for like my whole life, is like, I can just get busted for doing this thing that I think is innocuous. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's still illegal.
Yeah.
I'm still,
Well, so now I'm curious, what is it that you are recovered from?
I used to have a massive problem with pain medication.
Oh, okay.
2013, on my way to a photo shoot for my girlfriend at the time in Minnehaha Falls, we were T-boned by a semi-truck, and I compound fractured my right femur. I was rushed to HCMC, and I had they gave me a blood transfusion, I believe is the word, and they put a rod in my femur from my hip to my knee, and then for about 8 months I was crippled with a brace on my leg, and after 8 months all the muscles in my right leg had atrophied, and I had to undergo like incredibly painful physical therapy to learn to walk again. And I still have like an awkward gait to this day. Like if you watch me walk, I sort of walk with a limp, and every once in a while my right leg will just sort of like pivot and give out, and one of my legs is longer than the other now. After that, it was just I was in a neck brace for about 2 weeks, and then I was in the leg brace for 8 months. I couldn't do anything by myself. I essentially was more depressed than I had ever been in my life, because I was essentially like, I'll never recover. I was reading things online from people who had like similar injuries to me, and they're like, my life never was the same again. And I was pretty much like, I just like want to die. Like, I don't want to be alive anymore if I might be like possibly crippled for life. Like, I was like, I had taken the luxury of mobility and being able to be ambulatory for granted for my whole life, because like I grew up like watching Jackass and shit, so I was just always like a little daredevil kid fucking jumping off roofs and shit. And then suddenly I get faced with my mortality in a very real way that wasn't just, hey, you accidentally overdose on drugs. It's like your architecture of your body is never going to be the same. You will never be able to do what you used to do. I can't even fucking like jump on a trampoline really without like being in pain.
Wow.
So I just like sort of had to start like being the dude that's like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna sit this one out. You guys have fun. And the only thing that made me feel better about that was just like taking prescription pain pills and taking way too much of them and sitting around just sort of being like, man, it's cool being this close to dead and not actually being dead.
Dude, this is all I'm starting to remember this now. I had completely forgotten about that. Gosh, did you come to Nordic, or maybe I ran into you somewhere?
Or no, it had to have been Nordic. I think it was the same show when Maddie climbed the speakers.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I think I must have been complaining about my back or something, and you said that you knew exactly how I felt, and then we kind of dived into that. But yeah,
because I think I asked if it was like an accident or something like that, or if you'd had work done or any hardware.
Right. Wow, yeah, I'd forgotten about that, but that's such a heartbreaking story. And did the guy try to drive away, or did he blame it on you guys? I'm trying to remember.
It was a left turn yield, and as far as I know, I mean, again, I'm not a like master of anything. I don't know much about anything but Magic the Gathering, and so I from what I've been told, and this was like from like a legal counsel, because I had an ambulance chaser who fucking represented me for my case, because we live in a no fault state. I was the passenger. I had nothing to do with either vehicle, like being at fault. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the semi truck drivers apparently are supposed to stop at yellow lights. They're apparently required to do this, and it's just a thing. It's a liability thing for semi truck drivers. And we were at a left turn yield, so we were supposed to be yielding to the oncoming traffic, which was the semi truck driver, because it was like a flashing yellow. But with my girlfriend, who I was driving with, who was the one driving, she had recently gotten her license and like studied immensely hard for her test, and that was unfortunately her undoing, because she was like, no, semi trucks are required to stop at a yellow. So essentially in her mind it was like, well, he has to stop, so he's going to.
Oh wow.
And he didn't. And I was actually like half asleep on impact, because I had just gotten off work. She picked me up from work at Jimmy John's. Like, I was literally in my work uniform when we got hit. And I like woke up, like had like sort of like my head on the window, and I woke up hearing like just a car, and it was our tires screeching. And then just looked to my right and saw just enormous semi truck right next to me, about to hit me. And then I blacked out. Like, I didn't feel the impact. I just like, that was the last thing I saw. And I was like firmly convinced. I was like, I'm dead. This is death. I died. I just died. Like, I was just killed by a truck.
Wow.
And I was like, but I still have consciousness. Like, this is fucking crazy. And I was sort of like, this is death. Wow. But I was just unconscious. And I can very, very vividly remember that. Like, I'm dead. And I was just like seeing blackness and hearing nothing. And I was like, this is death? I was right. It is nothing. And then I got woken up by paramedics. They like stuck me with a local anesthetic, and I like looked around. First thing I saw was like smashed windshields. So I was like, okay, we definitely got hit. And we were in the process of moving, so there were boxes all the fuck over the place that had just gotten munched up from the impact. And I looked to my right, and my right elbow was clamped between the door and the roof of the car. Because like it crumpled up when it like on impact. And so I was just stuck in that. And I was like, oh fuck. And I looked down and then just see my leg and my bone was sticking straight out of my pants. Like it had broken through my pants and like was just sticking straight out about a good inch. And I started screaming. You know, I usually try to be like, oh, I'm the funny guy. I can keep my cool in any situation. I was screaming my ass off, screaming, help me, I'm going to die. Help me. And like, it was the most helpless I've ever been in my entire life. And like, I always try to be like the guy that brings levity. So I even hate telling the story because it's so morbid and it just brings the room down, you know, like I just feel like I need to like crack off a fart every time I tell this story because it's so depressing.
So there's got to be some PTSD associated with that.
Yeah, I was clinically diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder because of the accident and what I had to go through and like physical therapy and all that shit. And I had a couple of like triggers that triggered flashbacks, and it was the first time I tried to shower after the accident. My shower at the house I was living at was a standing shower in the corner of the basement. And I felt so ashamed because my father was the one who was like trying to help me take a shower. And I was like, my father is like looking at my fucking shriveled, naked, emaciated body right now because I had lost a ton of weight. And like I looked like shit. I felt like shit. I was literally crying because my dad was staring at my like disgusting naked body. And I was like, I want to fucking die, dude. This is miserable. And like I was like, is my dad seriously about to like scrub my shriveled dick like I'm a fucking baby in the bathtub? Like this is my life now. Like just kill me, dude. And I kind of yelled at him, like I snapped at him, and I was like, I'll do it my fucking self. And he was like, okay. And he shut the door, and as soon as he shut the door, I felt closed in, and I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get out by myself, and I lost it. Like I completely freaked out, like started banging on all the walls, like screaming, get me out of this room, like get me out of here. And like he had to pull me out like naked, soaking wet, and like hurl me up onto my bed because I was in fucking hysterics. And the only thing that calmed me down was like 3 morphine pills. And so then my brain did the old classic Derick thing of like, this thing made the bad thing go away, so this is the good thing. And it became 8 months of me just being painfully addicted to pain medication and not telling a goddamn soul about it. They were just like, wow, he's really suffering a lot. He goes through these pain pills a lot. You know, he's in a lot of pain. And it's like, no, the pain stopped 4 months ago. Now I just don't want to feel anything, period.
Yeah. God. Thank you so freaking much for being willing to talk about this stuff so openly.
Oh, no, thank you for giving me a platform, I guess, to be open about stuff. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I sort of come off to a lot of people as sort of like just like a snide douchebag. And, like, no, there's just a lot rattling around the old noggin. Well, I like a lot of people.
It is so difficult to come out of the other side of that. And be able to give positivity to something so fucking awful. I mean,
so how did you get sober from it?
Honestly, I had a day where it was pretty much like, yeah, my girlfriend left me because of this. My life is in shambles. I'm like a useless human being because all I want to do is be like as close to dead as possible. And I basically had a horrible ultimatum with myself of either like, you know, basically nut up or shut up. It's like, if you want to die so bad, then die. And if you're not going to do that, then be honest with yourself and know that you need to change shit. And it's like, am I ever going to say that that's good advice to anyone? Hell no. That was like honestly one of the worst things I could have ever done, because that could have easily turned into me just putting a gun in my mouth.
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody today who had opened up about some stuff about how even if you're not a depressed person, when you remove that thing that was raising your dopamine levels, depression can absolutely swoop in. And that's why, you know, when people are coming off of substances, they ask them if they're having any suicidal thoughts. It's because your whole system is just completely thrown out of whack. There's so many things that your body does to try to get you to bring that thing back into the fold withdrawals are not just a craving. A lot of people think that withdrawals just means, oh, you're craving a bunch and that you're sweating because you really want your substance. No, your body literally doesn't know what to do because you've been substituting,
a naturally occurring thing.
Yeah. Yes. There you go.
Did you go through withdrawals?
I did. And I was going to say to answer your question better, it's something where it's like almost a pride thing for me. I had a terrible breakup in 2016 with this person, so I still have a thorn in my side about it. But had the person who I broke up with in 2016 not come along at the time that they did, I probably wouldn't be around anymore. Because they weren't like the person where I was like, I need to stay alive for them. I was like, I need to stay alive, and they've convinced me that it's for me and that I have value. And it wasn't like, they weren't even a romantic interest at the time. It was just a friend of mine that was like, you're killing yourself and I care about you and you need to stop. And it was me like being faced with my problems, knowing that like, if I didn't listen to like the one person who was gonna give a shit and like care enough to be like, you're not the same and I want to know why you're not the same, and like divulge from me, because it's someone who wasn't very close to me at the time. She had dated someone who I hung out with in high school, and we were friends because of that. And so she was just sort of like, in a cursory fashion, like, I care about you, you're a human life, don't let yourself like fall by the wayside like this. She helped me to kick what I was, addicted to for almost a year, but just turned it into, now I've replaced it with something. It's sort of the methadone for the former heroin addict.
Sure.
It's like I have something that still gives me this partial numbness, but I'm not literally destroying my body.
And that's, it's such a hard thing. To try to say that at face value and be like, I'm not destroying my body, I swear. Well, and not just that, but like there are, I see it all the time in sobriety groups that I'm a part of, and shows that I listen to, where because weed doesn't seem to have overtly bad side effects, that they wonder if that can be a substitute for the substance that was destroying their body and their lives. But every time, at least from the professional perspective, like, even though weed isn't a gateway drug, for an addict, you're activating that exact same pathway. And it's just like with kratom and opiates, you're keeping that system alive, and it may not be today, may not be tomorrow, it could be 20 years from now, who fucking knows? But it could activate something that makes you want to have something else, or just, it can be so innocent. That's the other thing. It can be so innocent that you just think it's wouldn't it be funny if I snorted a line of Adderall right now? Wouldn't it be funny if, you know what I mean? Like these weird things that we tell ourselves that like, oh, it's kind of funny that I did this thing when I was high, or that I did this thing when I was drunk. But for addicts, yeah, it's just a sliver away from going right back to that shit, which I'm not trying to preach to you or anything like that. But with every time that we have somebody on who says that they still smoke weed, I say, for me, I have to remain abstinent from all of the things, because I'm just an addict all the way. If you feel that your addiction has become detrimental to yourself and those around you, then you should, if you're starting from ground zero, just get rid of all of the things. And I think, Kim, you were saying that, or you'd said it on previous episodes, that for addiction, they do like highly recommend
you quit everything.
Yeah, including cigarettes, any nicotine stuff, because you're just
replacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something people don't want to hear a lot is the term crutch, because people like to think like, no, I have a good handle on who I am and what I do, and I do this because I have the choice to. And it's almost like an illusion of choice that people impart on themselves, where it's like, you do have a choice on the beginning for the most part. I can't speak for every scenario, obviously.
Sure.
But at a certain point, it's unfortunately not in your hands anymore. And that's the problem with addiction and with spiraling out of control and with being like, for example, to use a lighter example, cigarettes, where it's like, oh, I'll wean myself off. I'll smoke half a pack a week, or I'll smoke half a pack a day for a week, and then I'll go down to a quarter of a pack, and then I'll be done. And it's like, tapering, I think, is a good idea in terms of not having to deal with as intense withdrawals, but allowing yourself regimented supplies of something, or rather like regimented doses of something, is it's another one of those weird sort of you create this sort of pseudo loophole, I guess, where you're like, no, I am doing less, so it's still okay to do it. And it's there's all these excuses that people who have substance abuse problems will make for themselves, and it's unfortunate that it's even at the core. Sometimes while you're even thinking it, like, this is an excuse, and you still can't work past that. And that's why I empathize so much with people who are like, I can't just quit cold turkey, I can't just kick this to the wayside and things like that, because it's not easy for anyone, and a support network is pretty much the most important thing, in my opinion. And if I didn't have people and professionals to help me with my problems, like if I didn't go to therapy, because like I can't say it's all just one thing that's what made me get off of certain substances, and I can't say I'm fully clean, because I still drink occasionally and I smoke weed a lot. And so I can't unfortunately speak from a perspective of like, I know how it works for me, and I can try to impart my advice from being on the other side, because I'm not technically on the other side. And I guess I'm sort of speaking circularly here. I guess I'm going around.
No, that's fine. I just want to say real quick, there's a lot of at least I'm not for people. Like, at least I'm not doing heroin. At least I'm not doing XYZ. It doesn't really matter, but I mean, and I'm glad that you're saying these things in the way that you are, because it is a process. It's not just like the light switch comes on and then you're suddenly clean. Like there are, a lot of hurdles to get over to obtain like a level sobriety. And it means different things to different people. I completely understand that. The thing that, what are they called? Chemical dependency counselors say, what's the most detrimental thing right now? What can we get rid of right? Like, if you're in danger, like if you're in trouble, they want to find out what is the worst thing right this second. And so if the worst thing for you was opiates, and you've been able to remove that aspect from your life, then that's fucking huge, man. And it shouldn't, like any type of substance that you're using now, that shouldn't mean, it's not an excuse, but it also shouldn't mean that you're not trying.
Yeah. And I guess I was sort of, I always like to cover my own bases, because I've been hoisted on my own petard way too many times, and have been painted as a very hypocritical seeming and looking person based on things that I've said publicly versus my practices privately. And so I always nowadays, like, just in my constant effort to just try to be a better person, I like to take it on the chin immediately and be like, I am not an expert on substance abuse, or the way out of it, or how you get involved with it, or even how to cope with it when you're dealing with it. I can only offer what I've had to deal with and hope that can help in some way.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious, so like for you, on days when you choose not to use any substances, what does that look like for you?
A lot of the time it's I get sort of I hate to use the term, because it denotes something far more serious than what I'm talking about, but I get sort of manic. where I want to get a lot of shit done. I never know where to begin. I feel very frantic, but that's normally just in the morning. I take an anti-anxiety medication, and so if I haven't had that in the morning yet, I sort of psychosomatically I'm like, oh, I haven't had my anxiety medication. You got to take that or you're going to be off balance, Derick. And so I do a lot of stuff that's just like psychosomatically freaking myself out. And when I get past that, honestly, it's usually just a lot of, I hate to say it, but clarity. So on those days, though, that's usually when I get the most like work done, honestly, because I make sketch comedy, I do a little bit of music, I do like art stuff, and so I normally just like to like go like nose to the grindstone on a day when I'm not doing stuff, and then I sort of am like, as a reward, now you can smoke weed or now you can do a dab because you actually did something that isn't just vegetating all day.
That's interesting. So, and I've talked about this before, but there is a lot of, I'm sure you've heard of tolerance break.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So there's the controlled addict, which is to say I can not smoke for as long as I want to. There's people that can go, a couple months without doing anything. But in the back of their mind, they're like, it's because I know that I can do it whenever I want to. I can pick a bowl and rip it. And like, there's things that we tell ourselves that it's fine because I know in the long run I'll have it again. It's okay. I'm going to survive this. And so, I mean, definitely. That's interesting when you say like that manic feeling. Do you think that because, I mean, not for everybody, but marijuana can bring that relaxing sensation and make you sleepy and all that fun stuff. I wonder if your body's just not used to being so aware, because it dulls your senses slightly, some more than slightly, but I wonder if your body recognizes that and is like, oh man, we could do anything right now. We can smell all the things, we can taste all the things, and but I feel like I do wonder.
Yeah, I feel like you're spot on.
Do you have ADD or ADHD?
No, never like diagnosed, but I definitely have some sort of like issue with learning and shit. I was the worst in school. I absolutely hated everything that wasn't English or something where I could write a paper. Like I didn't give a crap about math. I only liked like history because like I thought it was cool to be able to correct my teachers, because like I was such a jerk in school. Like I don't know what the fuck my problem was, but I was a complete asshole. Like I was that kid that like everybody else in class would be like, dude, shut the fuck up, you're gonna get the whole class in trouble because you're being an asshole, just stop.
That was Chris Duke.
Oh yeah, man.
I didn't even go to high school with him, but I know that's him.
my friend said it best. There's the class clown, and then there's me, which was ad nauseum. So like the class clown who didn't know how to turn it off. So
yes,
and I mean I haven't been taking any medication for my ADD at all, but you remind me a lot of myself. I see a lot of well, I hear a lot of, I should say, of similarities, and I know exactly. Yeah, man, we have a lot in common.
Oh yeah. And so that
how old are you again?
26.
26. Okay. So you're like halfway done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Halfway there. Yep.
How do I word this? Do you have a looming sense of addiction when it comes to the substances that you're using? Like, is there a slight anxiety when you think about not using, or an irritation, I should say?
Definitely. That's something I wouldn't even pretend isn't there. Thinking about a life where it's like you just stop smoking weed right now. Like the last time you smoked weed will be the last time you smoked weed. You're done. That scares the shit out of me. And that's me saying what I just said I can't tell if that scares me more. Like that's the big problem is like, am I more afraid of being able to let go, or am I more afraid of the fact that I am having that struggle to begin with when I like to think I have such a good handle on my own mental health?
Yeah. Well, and there was a night before I admitted that I was an alcoholic. Like I would say it thinking that I was being ironic
like
or
funny. Yeah.
No,
like facetious.
Yeah, facetious. There we go.
Yeah.
But I would never, I'd never wanted to admit it. And there was a moment, Kim and I were sitting in our living room, and she would say like, okay, are you ready to say that you're an alcoholic? And I would get so mad. I'd be like, no, I just know that I need to stop drinking for a little while, and we'll see what it looks like at the end of the tunnel. Like just the thought of having to give any ground on that means that I don't have control, and that frustrated me. So I completely understand that feeling. It's so, and the reason why I said irritation is because you feel like you know yourself so much better than what you're saying. Yeah. And so it becomes so frustrating.
Yeah, and it's almost like it took me forever to even understand where the frustration came from, and because I just thought, oh, I'm ornery because I'm not doing the thing, I'm not taking my happy chemical, that's why I'm upset. And it's a lot more complex than that, and it's a lot harder to unpack, where it's like, it's not just this that's upsetting me, it's that like in the back of my mind I have these anxieties, and I know that like you speaking in the first person, like me, myself, you know that you have a problem with substance abuse, because whether or not people want to think you can abuse marijuana, we already covered this. You fucking can. You totally can. I do it every day. And it's something you don't want to face when you feel like you are almost like, for lack of a better word, like a beacon for certain people, where it's like, oh, he was able to get away from what was ailing him, so if we listen to this guy, he'll be able to give us the good information, and it makes you feel like a damn fraud when you go home and you're like, yeah, but I'm gonna go home and take like a fat ass dab and then just vegetate all night, after I told everybody like, hey man, get off heroin, get off pills, get off this and that. I'm going to go home and do some drugs. It makes you sound and feel so scummy. And so there's that internal struggle coupled with it. And that's, I think, one of the worst parts of addiction is the shame that addicts do feel. And it's because you feel like you're letting yourself down. You feel like you're letting people around you down. You feel like you're letting people you haven't even met down, because, it's like, I could have, potentially had a friend or something, but I was at home getting high, and it's these are things that I plague myself with a lot, where it's like, do you think that you're really benefiting yourself as a human being by sitting around getting stoned a lot? And I've told myself a million times, yeah, because it makes me the funny guy. It makes me funny, makes me write scripts, makes me come up with good jokes, all that stuff. And it's like, at the end of the day, are you really sure that that's actually happening? And are you sure that even if that is happening, that it outweighs the money you spend, the time you spend, the things you forget, the things you don't accomplish? Is it really worth all of that? And that's something I've had to struggle with for damn a long time. And again, even using the word struggle talking about weed, I almost feel like I'm like a fraud. And because it's have you seen Half Baked? I feel like everyone's seen that movie when Dave Chappelle is like at the Narcotics Anonymous meeting talking about how he's addicted to weed, and they all boo him. That's exactly how I felt, where it's like, it all goes back to like, it's the joke drug. What do you mean you're addicted to weed? Just stop smoking, you dumbass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so funny. It's like, if you were to not know what anorexia was, if someone said, yeah, I can't eat, I don't do it, it would sound ridiculous.
Oh, definitely.
So like, comparatively, when people think, well, you can't overdose on weed, like what is it bad that happens? You get sleepy and you get the munchies, I don't understand. What's the problem?
Until you see people in the ER who become psychotic from smoking way too much weed.
Yeah. Well, and I can say dabs, two dangers. One, what she was just talking about. Two, if you hit too big of a dab, you can lose consciousness momentarily.
I've seen it happen.
If you drop and hit your head, you could be paralyzed. That I would urge you to, if you can. I mean, I would love it if you're able to kick whatever you think brings you down, but dabs, I would be extra psyched if you could knock that shit off.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing where like I always was telling myself, like, I think I started doing dabs in like 2015, 2016. I every time I'd see that shit, I'm like, that's fucking drugs. Because I always try to tell myself, I'm like, weed's weed, it's a plant, it grows from the ground, all this cognitive dissonance bullshit that I like to tell myself to make myself feel better about it.
Beautiful word, by the way. Beautiful words.
Thank you. I read books. That big word I said. With that going on, I like to like pretend like that's okay, but then I see a fucking blowtorch and dental tools and shit, and I'm like, that's fucking drugs. That's drugs.
Yeah.
This guy's got a blowtorch and dental tools and this stuff that looks like ooey gooey shit from inside an Alien and or like a goddamn Ridley Scott picture. This is fucked up, this is not right. And then people were like, basically just like, hey, you're a pussy, just do it. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I don't want to be a pussy. So I did it, and I was like, oh my god, that's like I just smoked like 6 whole bongs to myself. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened. That was probably actually one of the worst things that could have happened to me, because it was basically like full speed ahead from there. I was like, oh yeah, weed's for children. This is the real notes.
I don't know if you've done any research into like the way that the three steps of like your cognitive part of your brain, how it works. Midbrain, you have no control over. Your limbic system, which says, is this a good idea or is it a bad idea? And then your prefrontal cortex says, all right, we figured it out. That's a good idea. Let's do the thing. So when you're using substance, your midbrain is tricked into thinking that is a literal survival need. So it bypasses your limbic system and goes straight to the prefrontal cortex and says, fucking do that thing right now. So I mean, when the more that you do that type of stuff and you think that you've had this awakening of like, oh shit, I don't need to do the other thing, I can just do this thing, always a bad idea. It's the same, this like doing a bunch of hard liquor is way worse, but some people have gone through that motion so many times that their brain goes, oh, well, now this is just how we have to handle it every single time. And so that shit just, you literally carve out a pathway in your brain that gets deeper and starts to cut away at important aspects of your decision-making system. Kim Duke, what are your thoughts?
I agree.
I don't know if you know this, Derek, but Kim is a mental health professional.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I work in the emergency room. I do mental health assessmessments.
Yeah, I hope I haven't made myself sound like too much of an ass. Then I'm like,
no,
look at me
absolutely not.
words.
You've used big words. No, I thought you're very, very well spoken.
Well, thank you. That's one of the few things that I can hold on to, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it's a deceiving thing. That was another problem with me, was like people like us who sound deceivingly fine. Like Kim could never tell when I was drunk, like towards for the last couple of years, like I gave no signs because I still spoke the same way that I speak now. And and so people think that you don't have a problem because you don't sound like you have a problem.
Yeah, because like I hate the term like functioning addict, but that's like what it is,
I had a counselor say, because somebody had said functioning alcoholic in a meeting, and she said, that that phrase shouldn't exist. We need,
Yes,
so
because
stop saying functioning addict, functioning anything, because it's a facade. You're tricking people. You're not functioning.
Oh.
So this lady, she said all that, and then she said, let's be functioning. Take the other part out. Let's just be functioning. Well, Derick, any words of wisdom you'd like to impart on the already plethora of wisdom that you've laid forth on these fine listeners?
I'm happy you think that I even imparted any wisdom at all. That's very nice. I usually think I'm a very dumb guy, but I guess you guys are so well spoken about this stuff, and I gotta say, like, right off the bat, in my closing sentiment here, that like I appreciate what you guys do with this show so much, because as someone who does comedy, you're not trying to shoehorn in being funny into this. You're not making light of anything that's serious, and that's something that people struggle with. And being transparent and being able to be vulnerable about things is very difficult for a lot of people. And the unfortunate reality is that a lot of people suffer in silence because they're far too afraid of the reaction of people around them when they do talk about, hey, I'm not entirely as well put together as I put off. And it's very heartening to know that there are people that can put aside, like, oh yeah, no, I'm Mr. Funny Guy, to be like, but I actually, like, give a shit. I'm not using, I'm speaking for you. I apologize. But like, you're not using a platform to be like, anyways, check out my fucking show coming up now that this guy has gone on a soliloquy about how he almost fucking died, and I appreciate it so greatly. And I just want to say to like listeners, like, I'm not an advice guy. I can, like I've said earlier, I can speak from the experiences that I've had, and I can try to impart just a little bit of, I guess, I hate using the word because I don't like to hoist myself, but wisdom. I can just try to say, like, this is what I've experienced, this is what I've thought, and this is how I've felt. And I think it's important to, I guess, just listen to the people around you, talk to the people around you. Don't belittle people for being in a different place in life than you. We're all just people trying to be our best, hopefully. And to get through addiction, a support network was the most important thing for me. And not suffering alone was the most important thing for me. So if there's anything that I could give that's even akin to advice, it would be, if you don't have a support network through family and friends, and you don't have like the best finances for, say, like a medical professional or something, you can definitely look into different avenues of, like, whether it be they do like subsidized loans and things like that to see therapists. They do there are some places that do free consultation for people who don't make enough money to actually see a legitimate therapist, or I hate to say legitimate, just a paid therapist. There are avenues for people to take who don't necessarily think that they have the means or the network to even try to expand a network, but there are people out there that are willing to listen and care. And I've been connected to different professionals just through literally calling crisis hotlines. I don't like to use the term suicide hotline because it like makes it sound like, oh, you can only call if you've got a gun pointed at your head.
No, I like that you said crisis, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
And so I had to call someone and completely open up and say, I'm not fully convinced that I'm going to kill myself, but I am in the worst turmoil I've ever been in my life, and I just need to talk to someone. There are people out there for that, and I think just the most important thing is not suffering in silence. And if you are suffering, reach out to someone. And even if you don't think that what you're dealing with is suffering, if you don't want to go extreme and, take it to like that sort of route and say like, oh, I'm in an extreme turmoil, even if you don't think it's that bad, it's still important to just talk about it. If you have even the biggest problem or the smallest problem, talking about it's the first step to solving it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I have anything better to say after that. My gosh, you ended it. That was beautiful.
Well,
thank you.
If
I'm glad I didn't sound like a complete idiot.
No. I like that you turn around and you're like, it's not just for suicide, it's for crisis. Because I always tell people that too, like, well, I'm not feeling that bad, but it's like whatever you deem is a crisis in your life, if you're dog is sick and is in the vet hospital and he's not going to die, but he's not doing very well. If that's a crisis to you and you need to talk to someone, that's a crisis.
That's what they're there for.
That's what they're there for.
I think that's, I think that's fantastic. Do you have any social medias or anything you'd like to throw out there?
I don't want to use it as a platform to be like, okay, now go to Uncle Chuck's Fuckle Knuckle while I make jokes about,
I think in the realm of, if you do go to so we're comedians, that's okay.
Yeah.
If you do, when things open up and people come out to see you, I think you're somebody worth talking to. You're somebody that's approachable. And so I don't normally ask for people's social media.
Oh yeah, I'm open to converse with anybody, man. I love it. I can't stop talking. I'm always like, oh yeah, put me on your podcast, dude. I won't shut the fuck up. It'll be a 3-hour episode, man.
Well, I mean, I think we'd be happy Twitter, to have you on again.
Oh, I'd love to be, but I'm on Twitter at Stolen VCR. I tweet some dumb stuff, and then I do a podcast called Alone Time with Derick and Tubes, and it's just a bunch of bullshit, typical podcast, 3 white guys sitting around thinking they're funny.
Awesome, man. Well, again, thank you so freaking much for doing this, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for what you guys do. And I wanted to shout out James again really quick, James Thompson, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think I ever would have come to the Nordic Mic, and I never would have met you, so I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have such an actually important conversation to me. So I really appreciate James and the both of you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Yeah, we'll talk to you soon, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you so much. Have a good night, you guys.
You too. That was great.
Yeah. There's nothing else we can say after all
yeah,
that.
I mean,
you did a really good job at the end there.
Alone Time with Derick and
he said it a couple times.
I don't know how you spell Shubes, but if you watch the video, then I'll be sure to put it up here. Well, I love you.
I love you.
And with that, we will pass.
And with that, we will pass. Oh wait, only one person's supposed to say it. I'll
okay.
let you say it. And go.
And with that, we will fast. Oh, dang it. One more time.
And with that, we will pass.